I pray into every song and every album. May this song, may this album, may this show tonight touch whoever needs to be touched in whatever way they need to be touched. Like God worked through me.
She's writing it from the heart. That's where real artists who kind of push things forward, they don't look at what's happening now. They become their own now.
India.Arie came out at a time where R&B music was really changing, and it was kind of, no pun intended, going back to its roots.
India.Arie is like good collard greens. India.Arie is like the best vitamins one might be able to consume. India.Arie is like vitamin C. I mean, she's a boost to the immune system of consciousness.
Her being who she is and staying who she is means that that's who she is. And I love her for that.
For singer and songwriter India.Arie, life started in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado on October 3rd, 1975. The second child of a pro basketball player father, who named her India, and a singer-turned-fashion designer mother, India's life was one of privilege and opportunity.
I was born in Denver, Colorado. I didn't have any roots in Denver, Colorado, but my father, was a professional basketball player.
Her father chose the name, and I heard him tell me that he had a name for our daughter.
My mom said my dad came home one day and said, "I got the name." And she said, she was like, "Oh God, what is he gonna say?"
He came with the name, and I thought it was lovely. You know, I thought it was great.
Early on, young India's world was all about music. It was a life fueled by her musical roots, a family where music was in the blood.
But my mother is a musician, and my mother's whole side of the family are musicians.
I was with a singing group myself in my teens, and I opened for Stevie at Michigan State University.
The first music I was able to have in my hand, like my first records and my first tapes, and all that was from my mother, just by naturally watching her. She sang in the kitchen, she sang in the bathroom while she was putting on her makeup. It was just always singing.
Along with her family, it was the pop sounds of the 80s that most influenced the beginnings of India's musical journey.
Colorado really shaped my musical expression because I grew up with all what was popular in Colorado in the early 80s. So like Air Supply and Steely Dan and Lionel Richie and Cyndi Lauper.
The black station in Denver at the time in the 80s was 1510 KDKO, and anybody in Denver knows what I'm talking about. But at night, hear nothing. So we had to turn to the pop stations, as they call it now. That's what we had to listen to. So that's when we started listening to Phil Collins and Journey and Tears for Fears, and that's what we grew up on.
All I really did mostly was music. Listen to the radio, learn songs, listen to lyrics of songs, sing with the radio, figure out how to make my own music.
India's love for music and her natural talents were recognized early and nurtured by her parents.
My parents had an extensive record collection, vinyl, of course, at the time. And I would find instrumental songs that I could sing over, like if it was God Bless the Child, something that I recognized, and then I would play the record with the tape recorder and sing.
India was about 12, and she was doing some housework. You know, we all had our chores, and one of her chores was to vacuum the living room area. And I heard someone singing and cleaning. I heard this Sarah Vaughan-ish, this Minnie Riperton kind of flow coming through the living room, through the door. And I couldn't believe a 12-year-old could do that.
I think the first time I really knew that she could sing is, we were in the backyard one day just playing around, and she was singing Whitney Houston songs. And I was like, this young lady can sing a little bit.
Her vocals were always, even at 12, better than mine, and they still are. She's a brilliant vocalist.
Music is what I did.
She played the saxophone, she played the trumpet, she played the clarinet. She was very much into her music.
But her parents' bitter divorce created a stormy and challenging childhood for young India. And when India was 12, her mother left Colorado with India and her brother, Juwan, for a new start down south in Atlanta.
Yeah, actually a very tumultuous family life because my parents were divorcing.
That was a rough period in our lives, but I don't think I took it as hard as she did.
The divorce was not nice and not cool, and so and I grabbed my children and left. That's it, So it was hard on them.
She became an introvert during that time, and but I think as time went along, I think she understood what was going on. We all grew to the point like, okay, our dad is somewhere else now, and we're living with our mother, and we got used to that.
I never not allowed their father to see them, speak to them whenever they want.
My father was always there. He's a good guy, a fun dad. And it's cool because I didn't realize until I got to be an adult myself that both of my parents would tell my brother and I repeatedly, you can do anything you want to do.
India's mother moved the family to Atlanta, both as a way to...
Children flourished in Atlanta.
But India remained close to her father and returned to Denver to live with him and finish high school.
Me and India went back and forth to Denver to visit our father. I actually ended up going back to finish high school. A year later, India went back to finish high school.
So I went back to Colorado to live with my dad, and the schools in Denver were outstanding. We had jewelry classes as part of our art program. So I got a portfolio scholarship to go to Savannah College of Art and Design.
In art school, however, India was still drawn to music.
I said, if you go to school and get your lessons and get your grades, and you can graduate and be out quick. Because if you don't, you're gonna be in school forever.
When I got to college, I just was like, my music. What am I gonna do with my music? Because really, music was what I did as a hobby, that's the reason why I went to school, really. I worked at the school store. My first paycheck, I bought a guitar that ended up being broken, but I didn't know anything about guitar. I just knew I wanted to be like James Taylor. And then I went to a friend's house, and they had a guitar in the corner that looked perfect. So I asked them if I could have it. 2 months later, I had 4 songs written, and I went to this coffee shop to play my 4 songs that I wrote in the park when I should have been in class, and I wasn't. It was my first taste that that music was gonna be a part of my life for the rest of my life, that I was never gonna let it go again.
Coming up, India takes a big gamble on her music. But does it pay off?
I finally said, oh, here's what I'm gonna do. You can come live with me for 1 year. If you don't make it in a year, you're going back to college. That's the deal.
Her coffee house gig under her belt, India was clear she wanted to be a professional musician. So she quit college to pursue a record deal.
When I decided I wanted to leave to do music, my mother wasn't crazy about it, but she knew that all my life music was all I ever did.
My children were the first children of my mother's 8 children to go to college. And for goodness sake, you're gonna finish if it kills me.
She wanted me to transfer to Atlanta so I would still be in school and be able to be in the musical community in Atlanta.
She cried and we fussed and whined and moaned for a long time.
Well, when she decided to quit school and go hard on the music career, I mean, I thought it was a good idea.
And I finally said, oh, here's what I'm gonna do. You can come live with me for 1 year. If you don't make it in a year, you're going back to college. That's the deal.
India easily made her mark on the ATL's 90s underground music scene, where popular local acts like soul singer India.Arie and the group Jiva were looking to land recording contracts and take the music industry by storm.
The beginning of my career for me was leaving Savannah, going back to Atlanta, and I got involved with the group of friends, and we were all just friends, musicians. The singer India.Arie, the album The Colored Section, he was a part of that. We were our artist collective. We called ourselves Groovement.
There was something bubbling up in Atlanta around music and around what at the time was alternative music for Black music. It was, live instruments and bands and people who wrote their own songs, and it wasn't shiny and glitzy and glittery. It was just like raw, creative energy.
There are 2 elements of this artist collective. One, we had a live night at a club in Atlanta every Friday. That was Groovement. And then we had a label that never turned out to be a label, but that was our intention, was to be a label. That was called Earthseed, planting positive seeds of music in the earth. Donnie was a part of that.
It came out of the ideal of the Wu-Tang Clan and how you could get all these guys together as a force, almost like Voltron. And then everyone can separate and get their own deals. And that's the concept that we had for the Groovement and Earthseed.
And there were, lots of promoters who had started to do shows like Jason Orr, Funk Jazz Cafe, and Will with Chocolate Soul had started, and the Yin Yang Cafe was the place to be.
The Yin Yang changed everything. Yeah, it was a house of accepting and open people with no outside interference.
Atlanta had an underground and an overground. You know what I'm saying? You had people like Joy and Sleepy Brown and Seek and Jiva and Lil Jon and the Chronicle. On the other side, you had the overground people. You know, you had TLC, Usher, Outkast. Those kind of people didn't feel elite, and we could cross-pollinate and share ideas and gifts and secrets.
I felt like, well, we got amazing musicians here in Atlanta. Why don't we build something here?
On Atlanta's 90s underground scene, India became a local star at popular clubs like the Yin Yang Cafe and local music events like Acoustic Soul, where she got her start, and the Funk Jazz Cafe.
She was self-contained. It was just her and her guitar. And so we started to book her in stuff that was outside of our productions.
I had a reason to write a song, like I would write a song or two every week and then go to our live night and play it.
Friday turned into the night where, you know, the Groovement Collective performed, and yeah, her and Donnie were the headliners.
Whenever she was performing, you know, the house would always be packed.
I just remember rolling up to the club and seeing this huge line wrapped around the building. And I said, these people aren't just here to see India. There had to be and Donnie, there had to be another event that happened right before this.
She did have this one song, the India song you probably heard about. Everyone knew all the words.
I was totally playing at clubs in Atlanta and people were like yelling out requests, India song, and singing the song with me, India, like I was a star.
I just remember just being blown away by her. Just everything about her, just, you know, she had star qualities. And I knew at some point in her life that she would be, you know, a big star.
Somebody has to be first, and it was India. And it was because she was ready, because she was like, she wanted to be first, she was ready to be first, and she was self-contained.
Next, India scores a major record deal.
She played on her guitar for me, and I don't recall whether it was India song or Brown Skin. And I just remember getting up and saying, welcome to Motown.
In the year 1999, India went from local underground sensation to major label superstar.
From Earthseed, people were coming down to Atlanta because they were hearing about us, and mostly people wanted to sign Donnie. And second, they wanted to sign me.
We were working with a guy in New York. He called me one day and was like, I think that we can get India on Lilith Fair.
It made sense for me to be on the Lilith Fair. I ended up doing the B stage in Nashville and St. Louis.
This first tune is sort of my introduction. My name is India, and this is a song I wrote about Savannah, Georgia. It's a southern town in Savannah. It's an interesting place. That's where I started playing guitar and doing this 3 years ago. This is India's song.
The point about the Lilith Fair was that I met someone that I liked and that I trusted in the industry that I actually wanted to work with. Her name is Reen Nally, who was an independent talent scout for Universal.
I'd heard her name, and they said they think this is an artist named India, and she's out of Atlanta.
Reen gets in her car, takes the 4-hour trip to Atlanta, doesn't know India, doesn't know where she stays, doesn't know us, doesn't know nothing.
So I went to a lot of record stores and finally got the Earthseed compilation. And on it was a song that India did called India's Song. And it flipped me out.
It took her 4 days to find her. She kept asking, do you know this India? You know India.Arie? Do you know India?
And so finally, I ran across a guy who knew her. And he said he would set me up a meeting, a lunch.
She got my music, and then I met her and I liked her a lot.
She had a vision not only visually, while she looked the part, but she had a vision musically.
We knew each other for about a year, started doing some demos together.
And I said, gosh, you know, let me put you with Blue Miller, and you and Blue can hone these songs, and let's see what comes out of that.
She goes, I think your two souls would meet in the middle. Would you work with her? And I said, whatever that means to you, I would love to work with that voice.
She came into Nashville by Greyhound bus, and she had her head wrap on with her long dresses, and everybody looked like, oh my God, there's a star.
And we started working, finishing songs that India had written, writing new ones, just kind of learning who each of us was, you know.
And we had about 6 songs that we really liked, and I brought those up to Doug. Now, Doug Morris, by the way, was the head of UMG worldwide. The next day, I got oodles of calls from Kedar Massenberg, who was heading up Motown at the time.
She played on her guitar for me, and I don't recall whether it was India Song or Brown Skin, and I just remember getting up and saying, welcome to Motown.
But India's success quickly caused anger and resentment among fellow members of her Atlanta underground music community.
There was definite jealousy, and we even had our misunderstandings, because sometimes I'd be like, well, why didn't you do this? And, you know, just tell me that.
People really did not understand the work that she was having to, you know, what it meant for her to get a deal, what it meant for her to be first.
She didn't want to get bigger than them. She wanted to go with them. They had this vision, this whole river was all going to go into this big ocean. Well, that's not the way it ended up, because somebody had to lead the troops.
India pressed on. Now signed to Motown, India went into the studio to record her debut album, Acoustic Soul. It proved to be a challenging experience for the new recording artist.
Recording my first album was very difficult, going from just playing guitar and, hey, Donnie, throw some background vocals on this. Hey, Dana, play some guitar, just free. Then it turned into a bigger, much more was at stake.
I remember her being scared to death about all the language in the record contract.
The record label doesn't want to hurt the investment that they've made in you as an artist. So with India.Arie, when she signed with a record label, I'm sure a free-spirited, soulful, spiritual sister, I'm sure she had to quickly overnight realize, wow, this is a business.
They sign you by saying, oh, we love your music, this is so wonderful, we so support you, we want to work with you. And you get in the studio and it's like, that beat's not hot enough, that's not a hit.
The music that we had wasn't that obvious in the box hit. So it was another year of working and writing.
The stress of that time was really, really awful for her, and it did lead to really serious problems. Like, you know, she lost her voice.
There was actually 8 months during the recording process of Acoustic Soul where I lost my voice. It was just gone.
She was just stressed out, you know, being kind of ripped away from the scene.
She leaves and she's completely disconnected, not only from the people who she's the closest to, but anybody at all who was connected to that world in Atlanta, where she really bloomed and blossomed, and where she was, you know, able to become who she became to get signed.
With the release of Acoustic Soul, India faced tough competition on the neo-soul front. Singers like Erykah Badu, Maxwell, and Angie Stone were already well ahead, firing up the music charts.
I wanted to figure out how to get played on black radio. That was important to me, to be played on black radio, because I knew that if I made folk songs, it could be on other types of radio stations, and I didn't mind that, but I wanted to be based in the black community. That was just important to me. And what got difficult was I kind of got stuck in this box that they called neo-soul, and that meant you couldn't speak to anyone but young black people who wore orange dresses and purple head wraps.
Artists never like the terms that you bring to their music. Like they find almost any term limiting.
Well, as far as India's concerned, I kind of felt that she kind of had her own little niche, you know, as far as her own uniqueness about her as far as a recording artist. And, you know, stepping into the forefront of the Erykah Badus, the Jill Scotts, the D'Angelos, I mean, I felt that she could just hold her own.
India did break big. Acoustic Soul went certified platinum and rose to number 10 on Billboard.
Acoustic Soul, classic. That was the hit. That was the breakthrough. You know, that was the moment.
Know and hear who she was.
First song we actually sat down and tried to write was Video.
She called me up and she said, I don't want to do this. And I said, what don't you want to do? And she sang me the hook, and it was something about, my name is India.Arie, she says in the thing. And she said, I don't want to say my name in it. That's what they do in hip hop. That's not me and all that. I said, India, you need to do it, because that's how people will know how to pronounce your name.
And then she starts singing it. Not the average girl from your video. She had that much of it already. She had the hook already. And then she gave me the verse idea, where she wanted to go with the verses. And the first verse was written in 5 minutes. Yeah, the song was done in an hour, really.
Where she just put it out there. She's like, you know, sometimes I want to paint my toes, sometimes I want to shave my legs, I don't.
When she talks about the video, no, I'm not. Well, who is the girl in the video? A social construction of somebody's sense of what a woman should.
How can I be comfortable with myself and enjoy the skin that I am in?
Her lyrics were very much about empowering women, and I think that's what really struck a chord with the public, and especially
intense black woman with tremendous skills who was telling us, I'm not going to conform to your narrow image of what I am. I thought that was intensely liberating.
In a lighthearted way, she attacked a part of the music industry that had just become entrenched in.
Up next, high hopes and big disappointments greet India.
It's going to be a big night. Don't you feel good?
I feel a lot of things all at once.
Acoustic Soul was not only a smashing hit record, but went on to earn India 7 Grammy nominations.
Miss India.Arie for Acoustic Soul.
The Grammy nominations came out, and people started calling me and saying, "Blue, man, you and India are up for 7 Grammy nominations." And I had no idea. I had no idea we would even be qualified for that, you know, and it was staggering, absolutely staggering.
That was my first taste of like the competition.
To be nominated for 7 when you're not even trying to do that just shows the strength of what you do.
I mean, we were like, man, this is crazy. We're coming from Denver to 7 Grammy nominations? What?
It was a landmark moment in the history of, you know, progressive music, and the recognition that should be given to an artist with an independent spirit who had broken through to mainstream consciousness.
She had already was receiving a significant amount of media attention, but once that hit, of course, everybody wanted the story.
To see someone who I saw grow from, you know, knowing like 5 chords on the guitar to being nominated for a Grammy was something we had never seen before.
I was like, I want to win. I want to win some, and everybody around me, I think you're going to get 2.
It's going to be a big night. Don't you feel good?
I feel a lot of things all at once.
I would imagine. Yeah. I would imagine.
But in spite of her stunning 7 chances for a win, Grammy Night 2002 was a huge disappointment for India.
I remember being there because the album that I did with her, and the funny thing is she was going against Alicia Keys, and I remember Clive Davis sitting behind me, and I remember each time that she was nominated for each one, how Clive would tap me on my shoulder and say, "That's another one, Kedar, that's another one," just really let me have it.
And it was ironic that after the Grammys came and I didn't win any. It was all on television. It was all a little bit embarrassing, but more than anything, it was just hurtful because I'm just, you know, I'm an artist. I'm sensitive and insensitive about my music and whatever.
I remember going that night, and it was absolutely heartbreaking.
We were watching this, and boom, she lost the first one. It hurt. And she lost the second one, it hurt. And we said, we're just gonna keep rooting because you got 7. And as the night progressed, it made us sad.
How is it that you get 7 nominations and you don't win 1? When you are clearly in control of what was on your album, when you are clearly singing about things that matter beyond falling in love with a man, when you're talking about self-esteem, beauty, and self-acceptance.
It would be very difficult for me to recall an artist getting as many as 7 nominations and being shut out at the Grammys. I mean, that's a very rare thing. Alicia Keys just kind of sucked all the air out of that particular room. You know, the black female, the new black female room.
India's Grammy losses to Alicia Keys created a heated debate on stereotypes in the music business.
One can't help but recognize that there were tremendous stereotypes that were being replicated that night. First of all, light versus dark, let's be real. If you don't look the part of what America sees as the desirable, lovely, and if you will, sexually vibrant figure, then you might be closed out.
The thing that Alicia had going for her was that she had the backing of Clive Davis, who is an industry lion who has made the careers of so many great artists, notably Whitney Houston.
Knowing a little bit about the background, specifically of how Alicia entered the scene, I think she used a strategy that created a bridge for people who like classical, created a bridge for people who like rap, created a bridge for people who like R&B, and great entertainment, and wrapped it all up and said, bam, and it worked. Embrace this. It's a very powerful message, but a more difficult message for everybody to embrace instantly.
After the fact, a lot of my elder female musical idols were like, I tried to get through to you to tell you not to take it too seriously, but I couldn't reach you. Sade, I couldn't reach you. So I took it a little bit too serious, and it hurt my feelings a lot.
Determined not to be defeated by the politics of the music industry, India bounced back with a vengeance.
After she was nominated for 7 Grammys with Acoustic Soul and lost every one of them, she took the whole band to Jamaica, and it was a really cleansing experience to be able to go down there and work and record and just, everybody just enjoy each other and be creative.
My second album was called Voyage to India, and I rushed and did it in 4 months because they were like, they meaning just the contingency at the label. If you put it out fast, you'll go ahead and get those votes from last year. Now people know who you are, you can win some Grammys.
So I thought, in my opinion, that definitely Acoustic Soul was definitely a better album than Voyage to India. But as far as her guitar playing and her lyrical content and her delivery, I think she was a lot more confident on Voyage to India.
A lot of Voyage was written on the road. I have a very clear picture in my mind right now of being on the back of a tour bus with India, writing Slow Down. And I see mountain ranges in the back, so while we're writing Slow Down and the track is going in the back, that's what we're writing, literally going down the road. So that's where it came from. Slow down, baby, you're going too fast.
In 2003, Voyage to India earned her 3 Grammy nominations, along with a 4th for a collaboration with Stevie Wonder.
The night before the Grammys, I was at this function with Chuck D. He said, so are you ready for tomorrow? And I said, yeah, I might not go, I don't know. And he said, you are here to change things. He said it like that, you cannot change things unless you are present. So that night I created my mission statement, which I speak all the time. I carry it with me at my shows. I say it all the time from the stage. And my mission is to spread love, healing, and peace through words and music. It was the night before my trip to the Grammys.
That's when her purpose was really defined. And I think that's when she, in herself, resolved that she wasn't doing it for the accolades. She wasn't doing it for the praise. It really made her look at why she was doing this.
On Grammy Night 2003, India finally reigned, taking home 2 trophies.
There was certainly much more of a push behind India.Arie with Voyage to India. There was much more of a sense of her record company wanting to get her out there. And I think also, the music was a little bigger sounding. Acoustic Soul, it's sort of amazing that it got as much of attention as it did, not because it's not great, but because it's actually, it's pretty subtle. I think Voyage to India was a much clearer message in a way. People knew who she was, and she kind of stepped into that role a little bit, and in that time she did get rewarded at the Grammys.
Coming up, a relationship breakup helps inspire India's next album.
I was in a very committed relationship that was very tumultuous and dramatic.
By the time she recorded her 3rd album, India had become more philosophical about her music.
I pray into every song, And every album, may this song, may this album, may this show tonight touch whoever needs to be touched in whatever way they need to be touched, like God worked through me.
India returned to the studio in 2005 to record Testimony, Volume 1, Love and Relationship, including the trope.
I was in a very committed relationship that was very tumultuous and dramatic. And
I saw what was going on, but you have to let, as long as he wasn't physically hitting her or physically talking down to her or mentally talking down to her, you have to let it play itself out because she has to learn her own lessons.
All those songs that I wrote about relationship, not that relationship in particular, but about relationships and what they're like in the real world, and not on the movies, and what they're like in the real world, turned out to be my third album, Testimony Volume 1, Life and Relationship.
India.Arie's influence on young females is beyond reach. I mean, you don't know any young girl who doesn't have some kind of angst about her life or where she's going or who she is.
I'm Not My Hair is, in the beginning of my career, I said, I want to make music that makes a difference, because we all idolize Stevie Wonder, to all of us. And I didn't want to sing like Stevie Wonder, and I didn't want my music to sound like his, but I wanted to do what he did in people's hearts with his music. I wanted to touch people the way that he touched me.
When she wrote the song I'm Not My Hair, personally, being a breast cancer survivor, you know, it touched, you know, we had that whole connection as well. But the funny story is because I would, Simpson, India's mom, would make these head wraps for me because I was going through chemo, I was bald. And we used to laugh because I said, you know, they're going to say, look at this white girl, this India.Arie wannabe that's following her around, you know, because I'd have these big old head wraps. And then finally India would say, like, you know, just, you're not your hair, just, you know, just go bald, take it off.
That was the first album I did that had any of my old Earthseed stuff. The song, India's Song, was from my Earthseed days. And I saved it for a long time because I felt like it was special to me and I wasn't going to let it out anywhere until I knew that it was going to be taken care of. And There's Hope from that album ended up being used with the Barack Obama campaign, which was awesome.
For India.Arie's song, Hope, to be included was powerful. It was very smart and strategic on the part of Obama to incorporate these messages that have touched the hearts and souls of people of different generations, especially young people.
Barack Obama was facing enormous odds. He was a man who was against the mainstream. He had a funny name. He didn't look the part. Like India.Arie, he didn't fit into any neat category. And yet, like India.Arie, he brought his genius, he brought his consciousness, he brought his poetry, he brought his oratorical ability, he brought his skill as an artist of the word, and he made a way out of no way.
For him to ask India.Arie to, you know, create this song and use the song Hope, I think is very indicative of the Obamas and their respect of Black culture, their love of Black culture, but also to bring an artist who's really great to the forefront and represent change.
And Heart of the Matter from that album was used on Sex and the City, which was awesome once again because it was on the commercial. You know, Sex and the City was like widely anticipated, and Heart of the Matter was on the commercial, so everybody was like, you know, getting to hear me.
In 2009, India released her fourth album, Testimony Volume 2, Love and Politics, which included the duet with Musiq Soulchild, Chocolate High.
On one hand, I finally made an album that strictly came from an inspired place.
She had a really, really clear vision of what she wanted this record to be, and she saw it all the way through. That's what Volume 2 is.
Chocolate High was a song that actually came to her crib and wrote like 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. And it's been revamped.
2009 also presented India with the opportunity of a lifetime at the White House.
Michelle said, looked her straight in the eye, shoulder to shoulder. She said, "You are my favorite. I love what you do." India goes, teared up, and said, "Thank you."
In recent years, India has expanded beyond the music world. In 2003, she was named a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador.
I think it's important for celebrities to give back because it's important for anyone to give back, you know, when you have. But I also think that, obviously, anyone who likes what you do, you just have more support from more people just by being you.
She's more substance than style, and more substance than celebrity. Her embracing UNICEF and some of the ideals around that, and her embracing singing about and speaking about some of the world issues is a shining example for all artists.
It's a wonderful thing for her or any person who is able to give back.
She's staying with the sister now. The parent passed away because of HIV and death, so she's now living with the sister. She's still living with the sister. Okay, so there are left 3 of them, because that's the family now. There's nothing she can do about it. Ataacha kunywa pombe, si ndio tutaongea naye sawa? Yeah, tutaongea naye.
You write songs to make yourself feel better? I write songs to make myself feel better too.
India also remains connected and in touch with her community, and in 2009 was honored by the Washington, D.C. chapter of the NAACP.
She is truly an inspiration, and it is my great honor and great privilege to present the D.C. NAACP Centennial Award to the incomparable Miss India.Arie.
The NAACP is all about empowering people in their communities to be engaged in their democracy. And India's music is about empowerment.
I really strive to represent Black people in a positive light.
We know what India.Arie's message is about. It's about liberation, it's about peace, it's about love, it's about challenging stereotypes, it's about fostering a sense of humanity in the midst of inhumanity, and it's about bearing witness to the vulnerability of the spirit when it stands naked before God. I mean, that's a beautiful message for the NAACP to latch on to.
Being honored by the NAACP for me just always says, like, my community sees me and they appreciate that I'm doing it right. And tonight, to be coupled with Cicely Tyson was healing for me and a reminder of what I want to be. The first time that I got to meet Cicely Tyson, I call her my queen. Did you know I call you my queen? Well, you're not around. First time I got to meet my queen, we were in South Africa, and I saw her, and I was like, looking, I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And she said, come here, let me talk to you for a minute. I was like, yes. And I knew she was like that, because, you know, I've watched her, but just seeing it so up close, I walked away thinking, I want to be like that. Because I see myself like that. I want to have like just a lot of wisdom and a lot of great work with a lot of integrity to it under my belt. I want to be able to work with children and have, you know, artists who are 40 years younger than me calling me queen. You know, like, I want that. There's a lot of things about her that I want to be.
Self-determined and self-confident, India.Arie is without a doubt one of today's leading women.